somebody who has aged very well and somebody who's part of an organization that is really just doing all of the heavy muscle lifting on the legal front for ensuring that there is legal accountability for criminals on both sides of the aisle, but just in general, that there is some measure of accountability when it comes from the right, ladies and gentlemen, is the Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer, who joins the program now. Josh, you guys have done such great work, man, with the Article 3 Project. And, you know, I don't know exactly what interactions you've had in this case or if you filed any briefs in this case, but I'm sure you've been following it very closely. This came as a big shock to us, and I want to get your takeaways as an attorney.
Yeah, Benny, thanks for having me. So we have been tracking it very closely at the Article 3 Project. We've been tracking it very closely on my daily legal lawfare show, America on Trial with Josh Hammer. So I've been all over this case. You know, Benny, a lot of our fellow conservatives have been, I think, quickly dismissing this case, saying it's kind of a show trial. It's no big deal. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they're obviously correct to an extent. I mean, the special counsel, David Weiss, decided not to pursue charges for Hunter Biden's obvious, blatant foreign influence peddling, Burisma, $83,000 a month, Ukraine, the infamous text to the Chinese guy, you know, the big guy statement. So they chose to let that go. Fair enough. Point taken. But Benny, the reason why I have been paying very close attention to this trial and the reason that I am relieved, and yes, I have to say I'm a little bit surprised by the fact that there was a guilty verdict today. But as a lawyer, as a former federal law clerk, by the way, on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, who actually our court worked on gun cases just like this, Hunter Biden was absolutely dead to rights. This was not a close call at all. You know, I followed the trial closely day in and day out. The Hunter Biden legal defense, Benny, was comical. They were basically saying, oh, you know what? He was like a drug addict in like September of 2018. And then, oh, by the way, yeah, he had like another relapse like a few days after the gun. But no, take our word for it. At the exact day in October 2018 where he purchased the gun, he was not a user of a controlled substance as the relevant statute, 18 U.S. Code 922 defines it. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break. So the reason that I'm in paying close attention to this is because he is so comically dead to rights on these charges that this was actually going to be a last dying gasp to see if our justice system had any life left in it. And, you know, I have to say I'm a little bit surprised, but here we are talking about it. We got the right result. Now let's see if he goes to prison. That's the next big question, obviously.
So I couldn't agree with you more. I think that oftentimes our movement is one that can't take a W. Yep. And can't accept a win, and is perpetually screeching and screaming about like what should have happened in some like grandiose strategy. But there is no grandiose strategy. You must win small battles to win a major war, and you have to win these little incremental battles are important. Like having a piece of the armor ripped off the Biden, like finding a Biden guilty on these charges is a good thing. This is the first time a Biden's been found guilty on these charges, and it has happened in their backyard in a city where every person from the bum on the street to the mayor owes the Bidens a favor. They were able to return a guilty on all counts verdict, and that really says something.
Yeah, it really does. It absolutely does. I mean, look, these are jurors from Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington is where the Biden-Harris campaign is located. That's a big deal. I mean, that is a big deal that a jury of one's peers just found the most famous family in the entire state of Delaware guilty. Admittedly, again, it's not the FARA stuff. It's not Ukraine, China, but still. The guy blatantly lied on an ATF background check form. I'm a gun owner. Everyone who's ever bought a gun knows exactly what we're talking about here. You check that box. It's a very well-known thing. The dude blatantly lied, and he's going to pay some to be determined price for it. So it's a good win. You know, as a lawyer myself, as someone who clerked on a federal court of appeals, as someone who still speaks to law schools all across the country, this makes me happy. This is a good day because it restores some faith for me in the justice system. Is everything perfect out there? No. I'm not going to pretend like it's better than it is. Obviously, the lawfare against Donald Trump's disgusting. A lot of good people on our side, everyone from Steve Bannon to my friend John Eastman, they're getting prosecuted, sent to jail. It's all disgusting. But as you said, Benny, a lot of folks on our side can't take a win. This is a win right now, and we should take it.
Yeah. So can you talk me through what sentencing looks like? The 25-year number keeps being thrown around. Is that unlikely? I know that the federal government does not sniff at gun charges and takes it quite seriously.
Yeah, so guns, drugs, I mean, these are some of the most common federal prosecutions out there. No doubt about it. I mean, this is kind of a bread and butter federal prosecutor's case right here. So 25 years is that is the maximum under the sentencing guidelines for these 3 felony counts. Is he going to get it as a first-time offender? I mean, massive air quotes there because the guy's been on the wrong side of the law for many decades, but as a first-time actually, sentenced and convicted offender, look, he's probably not going to get the full 25 years. That's typically not how it works. The real question is he going to get any time, or is he just going to get a slap on the wrist and just get a home confinement, probation, mandatory drug treatment, rehab kind of thing? And I will be very let down if it is the latter. I think that we on the right, but we more generally on the side that is pro rule of law, that wants to see the law actually applied to everyone, no matter what your ideology, no matter what your wealth, your social class, your connections, this, that. We should be rooting for prison time here. We're not going to get 25 years. That would be great, obviously. We're not going to get it, but we have to see something here. And then the question, obviously, is if there is some meaningful prison time, call it 6 to 12 months or more than that, or ideally more than that, of course, is Joe Biden going to pardon? Well, I don't think he can before the election at a bare minimum, but don't be surprised if he does so the day after the election, Benny.
So a pocket pardon maybe on his way out of office or something like that. Brett Tolman, who's also a federal prosecutor, has been on the program talking about the enormous number of gun crimes and violations that he's brought and how slam dunk they are from a federal perspective. How they like the judges don't even bat an eye. They just give you, they'll give on a gun charge. The judges that he's worked with just give you whatever you ask for, right? And because people take this stuff very, very seriously when you're lying on your federal NICS forms. And so I guess they are in a very tough position here because Joe Biden has made it a tentpole issue to go after gun criminals, right? Like every other weekend, Josh, there's like a new gun criminals gun event at the White House to demonize legal law-abiding gun owners. And now Joe Biden's only surviving son is a convicted gun criminal. Just puts them in a weird spot, right?
Yeah, it really does. And it's actually even weirder than that. And I'll explain to you why. So the Hunter Biden legal defense was a little bit shambolic and all over the map because they probably knew deep down that their client was completely guilty of all these charges. So what they mainly tried to do was to impeach the credibility of the government's witnesses. So that would be, for example, Beau Biden's widow, that was then Hunter Biden's girlfriend. Then they tried to impeach the credibility of the stripper who said that she saw Hunter Biden doing crack every 20 minutes. And then they just tried to sow some evidentiary seeds of doubt and say, no, he actually was sober around that time. But when they couldn't do the witness impeaching or the fact doubt sowing, then they relied on an interesting legal theory that essentially goes as follows, which is that the statutes with which Hunter Biden was being prosecuted were unconstitutional, either facially or at least as applied here. And what that means is that it's unconstitutional because the Second Amendment prohibits it. They were actually ironically taking like an NRA-style Second Amendment absolutist argument, which is deeply, deeply ironic and quite humorous for anyone who knows anything whatsoever about the history of Joe Biden's career as a longtime senator from Delaware, where he was one of the loudest proponents of gun control in the entire U.S. Senate. So the whole thing is kind of dripping rich with irony, frankly.
So yeah, how do you possibly argue that? I mean, perhaps I'm naive on this, but it does seem like there is no argument, and that Joe Biden would suffer some real immense political backlash for pardoning his kid here. Again, maybe I'm naive.
So I think he can't do it. I think you're right. I do not think that he can pardon his son, at least before the election. I'm so cynical that I not only anticipate, but I fully expect that he will pardon Hunter on his way out the door, or if he's reelected, basically the day after too. I mean, once he is no longer up to the voters, when there's no more electoral accountability, he'll probably go ahead and pardon him. But right now, he can't do it. Look, Benny, he's struggling as it is to retain Black and other racial minority voters in his coalition. A lot of them are trickling off the Trump. How do you think a Black or Hispanic person who has like a cousin or a good friend in jail, how are they going to feel when they see the president pardon his son, but their family member or friend is rotting behind a jail cell? It's not going to be a good look, that's for sure.
So what happens in a Trump term 2.0? Let's say that you get a real attorney general in there and a real special counsel appointed to look into these real crimes. And we saw sort of the astonishing gymnastics and aerobics that the court system was able to go through in order to increase the statute of limitations with Donald Trump in New York. If you had a real special prosecutor, what could still be on the menu for going after Hunter Biden in again, January 20th, 2025 Trump administration?
So it's going to depend on exactly what charges you go for, obviously. But I mean, FARA is kind of the big one here. This is Foreign Agents Registration Act. It seems to many of us that Hunter Biden was clearly acting as some sort of Ukrainian agent, for instance, when he was taking $83,000 a month from Burisma while he was simultaneously orchestrating meetings between Burisma and his father, who was the vice president of the United States. So, come January 2025, that's going to get up on 10 years. I'm not entirely positive off the top of my head what the FARA statute of limitations is. It's probably right around 10 to 15 years or something like that. So hopefully that's not off the books. You would need Congress to then statutorily amend the statute of limitations, which probably is not going to happen, to be honest with you. So you might be, I mean, the nature of prosecutions is that the more time you wait, the fewer options you're going to have. But having said that, you're going to have options here. I mean, there's going to be some laws that are going to pop up there, and that would be a very, very good, wise use of the prosecutorial resources for a day one Trump administration. Look, Benny, I want to get us back to a neutral enforcement of the rule of law in this country to the extent that it ever existed at all, but it definitely used to be a lot better than it is now. And you have to do some mutually assured destruction to get us back to this point. And I know that you understand that, but you're going to have to bloody up some noses just to get us back to that neutral playing field. And there is no nose that is more ripe for being bloodied, frankly, than Hunter Biden and his foreign influence peddling.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear that nose has been doing a lot of work following the evidence of this case. And so finally here, Josh, just real quick takeaway. What does this mean for the fragility of the actual Biden regime? We found this verdict out live as soon as we started the show. My jaw was on the ground and I had to pick it up off the ground. I was quite shocked. And I was shocked because if you're following this trial as close as you have, you realize that the government really put their shoulder into this one, brought forward the laptop. The FBI said we have 18,000 pages of data that have been taken from the laptop to be used at any time against this family. To me, the four-dimensional chess here, it seems like there are forces at play that are either sending warning signs to the Bidens, like get the hell out of the race, or you are no longer protected. But I guess I'll leave that to your legal pontification.
Look, so the base level reading as to what just happened is what I said earlier, which is that this is a very good day. Take the W. It's a great day for the justice system. Again, it's not perfect. I mean, it is still horribly off balance, and we're going to have to try to work on that over the mid to long term. But for now, let's take the win. This is a good vindication that there is still some legitimacy left in the entire system, which is a good thing if you're a conservative. It's a good thing if you're pro rule of law. It's a good thing if you're pro Constitution. The slightly darker and more cynical twist as to what happened today and as to what has probably happened with this whole trial in the first place is that the prosecutorial apparatus, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they're trying to basically get the Democratic Party and the Biden regime to throw this prodigal son, Hunter Biden, out as a useful sacrificial lamb to try to then bamboozle conservatives into thinking that things are actually better than they are. That's a little too far down the rabbit hole for me, to be honest with you, because as you said, the federal prosecutors did whip out the laptop at trial here. They repeatedly said no one is above the law. I mean, they said and did all the right things, and they got their unanimous guilty conviction. So I'm not quite cynical enough to go that full dark route, but it is lingering in the back of my mind, I guess I will say.
Okay. There's always I've decided in my older age here, the older I get and the wiser I get, the more I realize the government is never acting on the side of the angels, or it's not like they came to their senses. There's always something that's happening that's leading to a result, and it allows me to be quite the skeptic, actually, in my older years here, Josh. Quite the skeptic. So we've decided to be skeptic on these things. But again, we will celebrate the W with you, the Article 3 Project, such an incredible organization. Everybody follow Josh Hamber. 122,000 Americans can't be wrong. A patriot and a fighter. Godspeed, Josh.
Godspeed, Benny. Thank you.